Well, hello there, all you marvelous people, and welcome back to another episode of An Ecologist Plays, The Hunter, Call of the Wild, where we are back in the Emerald Coast here in the Australian map. Now, this is probably going to be the last episode in The Hunter, Call of the Wild. Next week, we'll be moving on to a different game. So, today, we are going out with a bang. And we're going to get revenge on the thing that attacked us last time. So this time around, we are actually hunting an indigenous species, or a species that is naturally found in Australia. They evolved on this continent about 28 million years ago, and they are still around today. Not the same species, mind you, but the group. And we are looking for kangaroos. Now, kangaroos are mostly nocturnal and crepuscular, meaning that they're active at night for nocturnal, or they are active around sunset or sunrise for crepuscular. So we are just around sunrise. The sun is just about to rise over the ridgeline there, so we are around about the right time to have a look for them. They spend most of their time feeding because of their digestive system, which is different from those of ruminants like the deer we hunted previously. Now, ruminants like the deer we have hunted and the antelope species we've hunted and cattle, for example, those all have 4 stomach chambers, the rumen, reticulum, omasum and abomasum. And they feed by chewing food and then regurgitating some of it after it has spent some time in the stomach, up to the point where the food is properly digested and it actually moves on to the next stomach chamber. Now, the marsupials, however, they have a different way of doing things. And they're basically little sausage machines. They basically constantly eat, and as long as they eat, they can get some nutrients from their food. And kangaroos are also very well suited for arid rangelands, because they, it seems we've had some feral goats around here as well, but the kangaroos get most of their water from the food that they eat. And they can actually survive a very, very long time without water, provided that they have enough food and there's enough moisture in the food that they eat. But kangaroos are such strange creatures. That is a fox warning call. There it goes. Unfortunately, we won't be taking that one out. But that's alright. We did get some last time. Today, we are still hunting the kangaroos. Now, as I was saying, they evolved about 28 million years ago, and it seems the ancestors of modern-day kangaroos were arboreal, meaning that they lived in trees. And then from there, they became more ground-living. Now, we're just tracking a goat that I have also shot here, but as I was saying, kangaroos most likely evolved around 28 million years ago from arboreal species, meaning their ancestors lived up in the trees, and that was when Australia was actually covered, mostly covered at least, by a dense rainforest-like biome. And as a result, the ancestors of the marsupials that would end up becoming kangaroos and wallabies and all those types of things, they were up in the trees where it was nice and safe. And then around about 30 to 25 million years ago, the continent of Australia started drying out. We're just going to get this goat here. That's great. There are some more goats in the area here, a whole bunch of them. But as the continent started drying up, the grasslands started spreading, so grass became far more common. And as a result, the kangaroo ancestors came out of the trees and started feeding on the grasses that were so abundant, especially since there was very little competition for the main grazer niche in the environment here. And then what happened was quite strange, and that is that some of those kangaroos then again re-evolved to become arboreal. So they came from the trees, they went onto the land environment, into the terrestrial ecosystems, they dominated the landscape here, and then some of them said, you know what, I'm going to go back up into the trees, because why not? Which I just find very, very strange. But as mentioned in the last episode, all these kangaroos belong to the macropods, meaning large feet, because they have got very large feet, along with wallabies and wallaroos and betongs and all kinds of things. They are all in the macropod group. But we haven't actually seen a single one. We've shot a few goats, but we haven't seen a single kangaroo yet. Maybe we have been chasing them away with all the shooty we've been doing. Now, this great open plain over here is actually perfect for species like the Eastern Grey Kangaroo, which is the one that we are hunting, and yet there are none of them in the area. There's lots of grass available, it's a wide open country, they can see for miles on end, yet there are none of them around. I find that very, very strange. Now, we are heading into the late morning, which means that they would technically be spending a lot of their time a little bit closer to the trees. Feral goats still around, quite a bunch of them around. We're just not going to shoot them now. We don't want to accidentally scare away any of the kangaroos that may be in the area. But yeah, look at that. whole bunch of feral goats. As we've talked about in a previous episode, linked up there, goats in Australia are a massive problem. And so it's good that we have taken out some of them, at least. But there are still so many of them around. What would have been nice is actually if you can make a marked difference in the landscape here by taking out, for example, 50 of these goats in a day, in a session, so that they, for a while at least, don't spawn. Now, of course, if you're actually going for the gold trophies and stuff like that, then it doesn't make sense, you don't want that happening, but it would have been a nice feature to at least have, that you overhunt a certain species, either for exterminating them, or because you are making the mistake of actually overhunting them. And then for a while, they disappear from the area. And I know these spots, these feeding spots, for example, will disappear if you overhunt in this area. But I'm talking about the whole species disappearing from the landscape for a while or becoming quite rare. And that way you can kind of simulate the whole problem of invasive species and that you have to constantly get rid of them in order to actually make a difference. Now we're heading towards a watering hole over here. And there is a chance that the kangaroos could be around there. They may be wallowing around in the mud or going to the water middle of the day. Nice and cool spot to be at. I believe we're very close to the spot that I got attacked last week. That was fun. But I can't seem to see any more kangaroos around here yet. Now this savanna ecosystem would actually be a very good spot to look for them in the middle of the day as well, because it is nice and shady. Nice bunch of spots for the kangaroos to lie down, to graze on the grass over here, and just to cool down in the middle of the day. Now kangaroos will also cool down by licking their arms and letting their saliva evaporate from their skin, because as water evaporates, it cools the surface that it is evaporating off. That's why we sweat, to cool down. And kangaroos have got patches along their arms that will have very little fur covering it, and the blood vessels are quite close to the surface of the skin there, and it's very easy for the blood then to cool down quite quickly with the saliva that is evaporating from their arms. As we're just having another squiz, unfortunately still nothing. I've been hyping up this animal this entire episode so far, and imagine we don't get to see any at all. So stay tuned to see whether I actually manage to find any of these little guys hopping around the landscape. Apparently, right up there were some that are now fleeing. Ah, well, that sucks. I've been running and I've actually chased them away. So they were in this area. They were in the shaded environment. If only we could see. There they go. Oh, marvelous. Now, this is basically what we saw last time as well. Them hopping around like that. And hopping like this really uses very little energy. It's a very, very nice energy efficient way to move around the landscape. And scientists have done studies on them to look at energy and oxygen consumption when moving. And it seems that unlike most animals, which will use more oxygen and more energy the longer we run, kangaroos actually end up using the most energy and oxygen just as they start moving. And as they then actually pick up speed, it becomes easier and easier, and it uses less energy and less oxygen for them to actually hop around the landscape. So them hopping, like we could see a moment ago, is actually a very, very energy efficient way to move around. And we are just going to sneak up on them a little bit and hopefully get a little bit of a better view of them. Okay, so I don't think we're going to get too close to them, but notice there, they're using the what we call pentapedal movement, meaning 5-legged movement. Now that one has picked up on some speed, hopping around, and then when moving slowly, they tend to use their tail to actually push themselves forward a little bit, using their tail like a 5th leg, hence pentapedal. Now, most animals will be quadrupedal, meaning that they're using 4 legs, and we as humans, of course, are bipedal, meaning we use 2 legs to move around. There goes a goat, that's a typical quadrupedal animal. And then the kangaroos here are bipedal or pentapedal. But moving around like this slow movement uses a lot of energy. And as a result, they prefer not to do that. They prefer actually hopping around. And they can hop up to, I think, 56, almost 60 kilometers an hour, which is surprisingly fast. And that's if they really need to give a go, really need to run quite fast. And there we go, moving around slowly into the shaded environment. Sitting upright to, of course, look around, and that muscular tail now also being a nice little part of the tripod. And there, that little guy is now going to hop around. But notice the tail bouncing up and down. That thick, heavy tail is actually a very, very good counterbalance for the rest of the body. So that tail is one of the reasons why they don't tip over. Unfortunately, they have moved off again, but notice as they hop, their tail actually acts as a counterbalance. And that's just another one of the amazing adaptations these guys have. Oh, that is a mythical one. Oh my word. That is awesome. That's a big guy. That is a big male. Males generally are much larger than the females. And of course, there is an advantage to that. They're able to fight off predators. They're able to compete with one another. Can be quite aggressive, these animals, males in particular, towards other individuals. But of course, they do attack humans as well on occasion. Now, the Eastern Grey Kangaroo here is not the largest one. The red kangaroo is larger than the Eastern Grey Kangaroo. But the Eastern Grey Kangaroo is the one that is encountered most often by people. So if you see a kangaroo in Australia, there's a good chance that it's actually the Eastern Grey Kangaroo. Ah, beautiful, beautiful creatures. Alright, now it is the next day and we have located another herd, or a mob actually as it is called, of kangaroos. So another mob of Eastern Grey Kangaroo. As I've mentioned, these are the most common of the kangaroo species, one of 4 species of kangaroos, and there are a whole bunch of other species that are very similar, like the wallabies and the wallaroos. Wallabies are basically just smaller versions of kangaroos, and the wallaroos are somewhere in between wallabies and kangaroos. So if you were wondering what's the difference between wallabies, wallaroos and kangaroos, it's a matter of size. Now, the kangaroos should be moving towards their sleeping spot over here, which is why I actually came to this particular spot to try and look for them. So we're just going to wait for them to come a little bit closer and then have, hopefully, a good look at them. They should be making their way here slowly but surely. It seems they've actually decided to lie down a little bit further away from where we are, so we are going to just sneak up on them a little bit. They're chilling right over there, a whole bunch of them together. They never even made it to their sleeping spot over here, so we're going to have a look at them there. Once a jolly swagsman camped by a billabong, under the shade of a coolabah tree, and he sang as he watched and waited till his belly boiled, singing, "You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me." Down came a jumbuck to drink at that billabong. Up jumped the swagman and grabbed him with glee, and he sang as he stuffed that jumbuck in his tucker bag, singing, "You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Waltzing Matilda, you'll come a waltzing Matilda with me." And he sang as he stuffed that jumbuck in his tucker bag, singing, "You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me." Alright, we should be quite close. Oh, and they are fleeing. Of course they are. No! Okay, well, we got close. We got very close, and then they decided that it is now time to flee. So again, this first one was shot in self-defense, and the second one was then shot because we could. So let's have a look and see if we can find them at all. Of course, with these little guys over here, you can see they've got the 2 tracks right over there, and then nothing. And then quite a distance away, they should have some more tracks. Not quite this far, but anyway. Of course, when they jump, they only have 2 feet on the ground. And as mentioned, that is a very effective way of jumping and moving, and while still conserving some energy. So let's have a look at the kangaroo. So this is a male, and it therefore doesn't have any pouch over there. Only the females will have pouches. Of course, there are other ways for knowing this is definitely a male, and let's not linger on it too much. But here, as this little guy was jumping, I mean, notice the extremely long hind legs, shorter, far shorter forearms here. Yes, they will, of course, as mentioned, move by using their tail and their forelimbs and their hind limbs when they are just slowly moving around. But when they hop, these little front limbs are really, really useless. They're not used for moving. Only the hind limbs are used for jumping. And that's why we only have these 2 feet making the footprints as they're jumping from point A to point B. Now, they've got extremely powerful tendons in the front and the back of the legs over here, which will help them with jumping. And of course, their hind limbs are extremely muscular. Males generally are very, very, very swole, very, very muscular. And they are that muscular because they need to be in order to fight off other individuals, the rivals for the females, and of course defend themselves as well. And they can be surprisingly aggressive. Every year, apparently 5 people are injured by kangaroos in Australia. So it's not nothing, it's not zero. The red kangaroo, I think I would be more afraid of. They're a little bit, it seems at least, a little bit more swole, a little bit more muscular than the Eastern Grey Kangaroo that we have over here. But of course, as with most herbivores, great eyesight that they will use to spot predators that are trying to approach them. Quite good hearing as well, relatively good sense of smell, but they are extremely quick. They do rely on, first of all, being very intimidating, and potentially attacking whatever is trying to get to them, but they can, of course, run away very, very quickly, up to, as I've mentioned, almost 60 kilometers an hour that they can jump. In order to jump, they've got those muscular hind legs, tendons working very well, and even the density of mitochondria in their muscles in the hind legs, extremely high concentration of mitochondria. And as you may know from biology, the mitochondria would be the powerhouse of the cell. If you remember nothing else from biology, you most likely remember that. And so with there being so many mitochondria, they can provide a lot of energy to the muscles, which the muscles will then, of course, use when jumping. So yeah, this is really, really such a cool creature. Unfortunately, we had to get at least the one individual here. But really, really a gorgeous, gorgeous animal. But the kangaroos and all the marsupials in Australia and the monotremes, the egg-laying mammals as well, really a testament to how amazing the diversity of creatures can be if animals and plants evolve in isolation. I mean, Australia has been separated from all other continents for a very, very long time. And during that time period, the marsupials went from these tree-climbing little possum-like creatures to the variety we see nowadays, with wombats, which are like aardvark and digging underground, making these big burrows. You've got numbats, which are like little anteaters, eating ants. You've got echidnas, which are little monotremes, egg-laying mammals, which also are ant-eating. You've got the platypus, which is goodness knows what, but also a monotreme. And then we've got exotics like goats that we just shot there as well, which are just kind of stuffing up this amazing, amazing ecosystem. But these creatures evolved without competition. They evolved without a lot of foreign predators. I mean, the dominant predator in this landscape would have been Thylacoleo, the marsupial lion, until they went extinct, and then the thylacine, or the Tasmanian tiger, would have been the dominant predator in this landscape. But at one point there was even a predatory, or probably predatory, but very likely omnivorous kangaroo that survived on the Australian mainland. So there has been an amazing, amazing diversity. And as someone who has not had the opportunity yet of going to Australia, it has been an absolute treat to at least partly experience this amazing continent and some of the wildlife. Although most of the wildlife we have in the game here are exotics. I mean, we've been shooting them to blue hell. But a lot of the creatures like the kangaroos and the saltwater crocodiles and the magpie geese and those types of things, they are indigenous and they are such amazing, amazing creatures. But as mentioned, this is probably the last episode then, for now at least, on the Australian map for us. Next week I'll be back with 2 videos, hopefully again Tuesday and Friday. And I will be playing 2 games there that I've wanted to play or make videos of for a very, very long time. So stay tuned to see what they are. And thank you very much for joining me on a little adventure, everybody. Hope you learned something. I mean, the kangaroos are simply amazing, and it is an absolute treat to talk about them with you. Of course, on Sunday, Nick and I will be streaming Grounded again, and then next week, 2 little surprise videos coming out. So until next time, everybody, stay safe. I'll see you all soon. Bye.